He gives you a job. You don't understand what the job is. Like I said, one Shaykh that I traveled with, his thing was tickets. Sometimes in the day, I'd change the tickets 3 or 4 times. So go here and get okay, no, we're not going to go by plane. We're going to go by train. Okay, good. You know, and it's a foreign country, and I don't speak the language and everything. But I'm learning from this. He's making me do these jobs. And I said, why am I doing it? Because by this thing, this is the fuel that will make my fire burn, right? And that's how he's taking me to understand what he's doing with me, why he's doing this with me, what he's doing. So what he said, don't tell them no. He said, don't tell them no. That's the thing of that other story. And he said in this time also, another thing that he was talking about, that in this time, in the present time, that many people go to the things like this and then the spiritually elders for worldly benefit. And Maulana Ashraf al-Thanawi, Qaddasallahu Thanwi, Qaddasallahu Siruhu, says that the murid who takes guidance from his sheikh on worldly matters is like a person who visits a goldsmith to get his shoes mended. Right? So, you know, I mean, right? I thought that was a good story, good little one that he said. So that is not to say the murid shouldn't ask about worldly guidance, but you know, I once went into talking to the sheikh about it, and the sheikh said, look, you know, he said, I'm not a politician, you know, I'm a sheikh, you know. I mean, he was talking about something about the CIA and this, you know, people in Egypt, you know, they go on about this for, and said, why are they reading newspapers? And they said, no, that's not me, you know. Anyway, that's not the predominant factor. The predominant factor should be, again, for the deen. The path of spiritual struggle is a rugged one. It has many side paths. It's very difficult to enter it alone. And it is very important for you to accompany a completed guide who knows the defects of the soul and knows the path of spiritual struggle and treatment. By keeping the company of a spiritual guide, the spiritual aspirant gains practical experience in the ways of purifying his soul, just as he obtains the sacred spiritual effulgence of the sheikh who pushes him to perfect his own self and personality. For instance, I spent many hours sitting with the sheikh in dealing with divorce cases, a lot of time, or marriages that weren't going to happen. They were almost going to happen, but they didn't happen. And then who, you know, like in Egypt it's very complicated, like, you know, the man is responsible for certain things in getting the apartment and the woman is responsible, the families. And so, like in one case, they were arguing about who they were taking apart the marriage. They're not going to have the marriage, but they had already bought the apartment and they painted the apartment. Now, who did the paint belong to? You know, like, so you know, this guy and the sheikh is very quiet, sitting there listening, you know, trying to understand all this thing. From this, you learn many lessons. So if you don't spend the time with him, like you just go and you say, okay, once a week he has dhikr, once a week he gives a dars. Okay, I go to the dhikr and I go to the dars. Okay, I'm in and out. I'm going, that's it. Oh, I got a lot from that. Well, what I'm trying to say is that when you start spending time with them and you see what they do and see how they do it and see how this is the process of learning. And this process of learning doesn't take place except by being in the company. You have to spend the time. It's what we call, I mentioned earlier, breaking your legs. You have to be willing to spend the time to sit there, and you get, your mouth is shut. You don't say anything. You just like the fly on the wall. But from this, you learn. And if you don't do this, you don't learn. You've got to, if you have a sheikh, spend time with him or her, as the case may be, because as Ali Nooruddeen Yashruti, Fatima Yashruti, was a great sheikha and a great teacher for many people. So it's not a question of sexism or anything like that in this case. You find somebody who can teach you, don't be content with just going for, this period of time and that period of time. Find a way, connive a way, find a way to spend time with them. Find a way to spend time, even if it's just hanging out, sitting in their company. Why? Because you learn many things that you will never learn any other way other than by doing that. It's not that he's doing something, because the sheikh never does anything. I have a thing later on about that. That in truth, the sheikh is not doing anything, on that level. He's talking on, in this thing, he said that the dua of the Muslim is, "Oh Allah, keep me in change." That doesn't mean spare change. Keep me in change. Huh? Keep me always changing, because everything is changing. And every day Allah is on a new creation. You must be renewing yourself. You must be all the time renewing yourself. You have to be, to do this, and you must remember that the company of the Shaykh and with the company of the fuqara, of those who are come, that this change takes place. You must keep each other company. Travel to other places where there are other fuqara. You know, to leave. Then when I went to California, I tell people, go and visit other people. Somebody told me, he said, well, I'm going to go live in a town, you're not in that town, what should I do? I said, find a place where people are reading Quran or people are doing dhikr, and go sit with them. Because what's the option? Sit home alone? Sit with your roommates or watch TV? No, find every town, almost every town in America, there's somebody who's doing dhikr or somebody who's doing this, whatever it is, find that circle and spend some time with those people. Keep company with those people, because those are the people, their consciousness, their focus is on Allah. Their focus is on Allah. This brings you to Allah. Don't, like some sheikhs say, oh no, you don't sit and do dhikr with me and that's it. No, we're not like, wherever you go, find the people of dhikr, find the people of Quran, sit with them, be with them, and learn from them. Because by this way, you will increase your understanding and awareness. He said, Shaykh Abdul Qadir said, Tasawwuf is keeping company. Tasawwuf is listening. Tasawwuf is acting upon what you hear. There is only one enemy, and that's yourself. The nafs have very little good in them, in truth. And the worst of all things to the Sufi is the recognition of their own good qualities against other people. In other words, that's back to what we talked about before. What is the sin of shaitan? Ana asan minhum. I'm better than he is. You made me of this, you made me of that. I'm black, he's white. I'm from China, he's from India. Whatever it is that sets you apart from them and make you something that's better than somebody else, you know the shaitan is involved in that. So say, watch for that. Because this is what sets you back and smashes you on the rocks. You must not look at your good qualities. You must consider that something that in themselves have been spoiled, even by you being conscious of them. Don't look at yourself. Harith al-Muhasabi used to say, do not find fault with others, find fault with yourself. Look to yourself and say, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? When he used to go to bed at night, he used to go over his day, then he went over his hours, then he went over his minutes, and then when he went over his breaths, until he verified that what he was doing was pleasing to Allah and acceptable to Allah. This is his every day. There's always say, every night, muhasabah nafs. Every night, muhasabah. Before you sleep, look at yourself, look at your day, look at what you did, look at how you acted, how you behaved, and so on. Look at what you did. Whether it's in business, whether it's driving your car, whether you cut that guy off in the car, whatever it is, see what you did, because there's two things. There's maghfirah, there's asking for forgiveness, and there's tawbah. Allah created these two things in pairs. Maghfirah and tawbah. If you make a mistake, Allah will forgive you. Everything except shirk, we know that. But what's the concomitant of that? To make the tawbah. Say, okay, this is like, I have my problems. I know my problem. I have a problem with anger, for instance. Okay, I'm doing this. And when I graduated from school in my 8th grade, my principal in the book wrote in my school book, you know how you have those little books that teachers write in, said, count to 10. I'm 70 some odd years now, I'm still trying to learn to count to 10, right? This is something you work on all your life, but you have to keep working. You have to know this is your problems, these are your mistakes. You have to learn to change yourself. And who can tell you to change yourself except somebody who can see you? Otherwise you don't know. And if you don't know, you can keep doing the same mistake over and over and over again. Two great ulama, they met in Baghdad and they began to argue with one another, and then they fought with each other. And then the end of the one, they said to each other, let's meet tomorrow and discuss this matter further. The other one says, no, let's meet tomorrow and make peace and forget all about it. So that's another part of the way of the Sufi, begin again. Don't be limited in your forgiveness of the faults of others, but any consciousness of yourself you have to learn to turn away from. He says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَّا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Those who believe and make tranquil their hearts by the dhikr of Allah. This is what will work for you. This is what will work for you. Not thinking about yourself, who you are and what you did and what this and that and the other thing and everything like that. Dhikr, dhikr, dhikr. Dhikr is quicker. like that. Alladina yadhkuruna Allaha qiyaman wa qu'udan wa ala junubihim. Those who not only say like, okay, we can only do dhikr like this. No, Allah says, Alladina yadhkuruna Allaha qiyaman wa qu'udan wa ala junubihim. Those who remember Allah standing, sitting, and reclining on their sides. In other words, all the time you have an opportunity to be remembering Allah. You only know whether you take that or you lose that. You only know. What do you spend your time doing? How do you spend your time? He said, call upon Allah. You can't afford to be out of the company of the people of Allah for any amount of time in this age that we live in, because otherwise you see what these people are involved in. Nothing. They call themselves consumers. Is that what we are? Consumers? Is that what we become? Consumers? At least we're warm-blooded mammals. At very least, we're warm-blooded mammals, and we're so much more beyond that. But consumer? Will you describe yourself as a consumer? That's your purpose in life, to consume? Okay, the towers fell down, go out and go shopping so we can, get this thing back on the road again? This is the mentality of the world that we live in. This is the mentality of the world we live in. We have to find like-minded people. That's why I'm sure Shaykh Rashid so many years ago began the community and everything like that. So like-minded people who live together and they work together and they spend time together and like that. Is it perfect? No, of course it's not perfect. Life is imperfect. But at least this is the opportunity of it. The same with the people who work together up in Northern Virginia, or the same with the people with Sheikh Harun or Sheikh Muhammad. Any of these places, it's the same thing. Try to find these places and keep the company. And if you go out, to find the company. And then he goes on to say, Sheikh, to speak well of people, have a good opinion of people, be a people of chivalry, have futuwa, in other words. You must become these people who are spoken of because of their high aspirations, their himmah, which is on a universal scale, so that when you go and you see all the troubles that there are, you must look for the people of Allah and sit with them. So when he says, if you go to the Kaaba, find the people of Allah and sit with them. He didn't say necessarily that, find those people like that. Beware of the people of the dunya. Beware of the people of the dunya until you are safe. And when you are safe, it doesn't matter where you go. And if you're not safe, then you better be careful. You have to have taqwa, you must have wara. Yani wara means scrupulous. You need to be sure. Is that really halal? Is that what I'm eating really halal? Do I look on the thing and I look on the back and do I see, does it have this in it? Does it have that in it? This is the wara. You need to exercise this wara in everything that you do, as well as to have the taqwa. Take care, watch until you are on the Siratul Mustaqim, because when things go wrong, you have to remember that the only thing you have is Allah. And one of the shaykhs said, whoever sits with the perfumer becomes fragrant with his perfume.